Hello, my name is Brittany. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be reading The Hollow Places. The Hollow Places is a book by T. Kingfisher, and this is technically a horror, although I've heard from a lot of people it is not a horror. It's kind of more of a fantasy / magical realism kind of book, and that's what I'm expecting. I've definitely lowered my expectations from horror to more of like fantasy, but I was really looking forward to more of a horror. I know that Gabby from Gabby Reads actually DNF'd this book, and I really hope that I don't go that route. I don't want to have to DNF it. I try everything in my power not to DNF books because I also like to read them before I review them, and so if I DNF it, I technically didn't read the full bit, even though I do read to 50% before I DNF. I'm hoping that doesn't happen here. It's not very long, but I mean, if it is really bad, it's gonna go in the DNF pile. It's only about 330 pages, so I'm expecting to finish this within like 2 to 3 days. Especially if I think I'm not gonna like a book, I actually try my hardest to read it as often as possible so that I keep in the story. Just in case. I know that may sound counterintuitive, but I know how I can get, if I don't like a book, I can get kind of slumpy or take a whole week to read it, which I don't like. And I think I just need to try to slam through them as quickly as I can, and if I don't like it by the halfway point, I just need to learn to DNF them. So let me tell you what this is about. So we are following Kara, who just recently got divorced, and she moved back in with her uncle, and she grew up knowing her uncle, and he has this crazy museum with a bunch of taxidermied animals and a bunch of relics and weird things. It's just kind of a weird, kooky museum that everyone seems to enjoy, and I think kooky is probably the right word for her uncle as well. He's kind of overly religious, but he doesn't push it in your face, so, and he seems like kind of like a fun, kind character. He just seems like that funky uncle that everybody likes. So her uncle offers for her to move in with him because of the divorce, and she ends up moving in and helping taking care of the museum while her uncle is getting surgery, I think on his knees or something. And while she is there, she discovers like this, I don't know if it's like an alternate universe or like a portal to Narnia in the middle of like her uncle's museum one night. Like she sees like this giant hole in the wall, and they look through it and there's a whole hallway, and they're like trying to figure out what's going on. So her and Simon, he is kind of like the gay best friend in this, and he works next door as a barista at the coffee shop, and they're kind of exploring this, and that's all I really know. I know it can get kind of creepy apparently, but no one says it was really horrific or something that they would call in the horror genre. So I'm hoping it at least has some good creepy elements. At least I hope I enjoy it, even if it is more along the side of magical realism. Magical realism can be okay if it's done the right way for me. Like there's some books I've really enjoyed that have it, but I'm just not sure yet. So I'm gonna try and power through this, and I'll let you know. For dinner tonight, I'm making homemade tomato soup and garlic grilled cheese. So I'm really excited to get started on that, and then hopefully read a little bit of this while that soup is cooking. So wish me luck. So it's the next day, and I'm actually 163 pages in. So it obviously is not a DNF, and I'm kind of surprised about that. But this actually took off, and it's going in a very interesting direction. In the beginning, I was definitely kind of worried, but now we're in this alternate dimension universe. I knew that was in the premise, but I never like really looked at it too closely. But actually, I would agree that this is kind of horror. Like I was kind of thinking it was gonna be more magical realism or fantasy, but I could definitely see how this is horrific because they're finding horrific things, and it's kind of a horrific experience. It's not magical per se. So I would definitely agree with it. Now here's the tea. I really want to finish this by today. Not just because I like finishing books quickly, but because I'd like to take it back to the library today. I'm taking back like 5 other books I just read, and I would like to add this to the pile because then I'll only have like 2 library books left to read, which never happens because usually I have to pick up other library books, but today I don't. I think it'll make me feel very accomplished. So I would like to finish this by today. I'm basically halfway through, so I definitely could do this, and that's my goal. So far, our main character basically found this hole in the wall, and then her and her friend went to explore it. And when they went through, they realized, number one, they found a dead body, and they're trying to figure out what's going on because on one side of the hole, it is concrete, and the other side, it's drywall. And they're trying to figure out what's going on, and they end up going farther into this, what they call a bunker. And when they open like the other door, they find this alternate universe that looks like, I picture like a bunch of like hobbit houses, like covered in grass around like a marsh area. And that's kind of what it sounds like they're describing. And there's these creatures there. They call them like godlike creatures that they can't really see, but they can feel, and they obviously prey on humans. And you have to hope they're hungry, because if they're hungry, they'll eat you. But if they're not hungry, they'll play with you. And that is the horror factor in here. And no one's really told me that. Everyone just kind of like gives me the gist, but like I sometimes need a little bit more to go into books, and I'm really glad that I actually ended up picking this up, because I had the weirdest dreams last night because of this, and they were like good weird, and it made me like think in my dreams. So this book so far has not been bad, but I'm also only halfway in, so it could kind of go downhill from here. So far so good. I don't have any big complaints other than I just feel like I'm not a big fan of like the gay factor being brought up a lot, because her friend Simon is gay, and I feel like it's brought up way too often in this book. And I know that we're obviously don't have a whole lot of time for character development, because they're obviously in these like terrible situations, but I just feel like, do you really need to talk about anal all the time and make drag jokes? Like, I just feel like it might be a little bit too much for my taste. That's just my opinion. So far, this is looking like a 3-star, so let's hope it stays there. And let's hope I can actually finish it in the next like 5 hours. So if you can hear, it is raining here yet again today for like the 3rd time, and I'm going to try to finish this in a library parking lot. I only have about 60 pages left. I'm hoping I can finish it. I definitely got here a lot later than I intended, but I can hopefully finish this before they close. So I'm gonna sit here in this very humid environment right now, and I'm gonna try to read this. True to my word, I finished The Hollow Places, and I actually enjoyed this. I'm definitely really surprised. I was really expecting to not like this whatsoever. I really was, but something about it just worked for me. It wasn't my favorite book of all time, but it definitely was kind of one of the weirdest ones I've read in a while, and I really enjoyed that. And I actually really enjoyed the ending, and I really enjoyed like the reasoning behind like how the whole thing happened, and I really enjoyed that. I like when things actually don't have an ambiguous ending, and I knew that if this had an ambiguous ending, I'd be pretty upset, because this is one of those stories that if it had the ambiguous ending, it'd be too much like a Josh Malerman book, which like drives me nuts. Like, he just likes to do ambiguous endings, and they can really bother me. This one actually had an ending, and I like that. It was definitely a little bit too wordy at times, and it was trying too hard to be like quirky yet scary, and I really didn't like the whole gay best friend trope, especially because the fact that he was gay was brought up pretty much constantly, like in everyday dialogue. Like, he was like, oh, I'm gonna tie you to the bed, and she said kinky, and then he said, you're not my type, hun. Like, it just happened all the time. It was constantly being pointed out that she was not his type, or, you know, ordinarily they would sleep together after such a traumatic event, but he was gay. And it just did not need to be brought up all the time. It was like really annoying, to be honest. And I don't think it was meant in a disrespectful way, but I think that she was trying to portray his sexuality as being such a really big part of his personality, but it just really bothered me. The good part of that was I actually envisioned Dan Levy as Simon, and he is just so funny. And I feel like every time I was like reading a line, I just like read it in his voice, and it just like brought me even more into the story. And I feel like Dan Levy would play him really well if this ever got made into like a film. This is not a perfect novel by any means, but I think I'm gonna give it probably like a 3.5 or something like that. I think it was actually really good, and I'm very surprised at this experience. I was not expecting to read this that quickly, and I was not expecting to actually enjoy it. There are definitely some images from this book that will definitely haunt me, and in a good way. Like, they're just kind of weird and unsettling and gross and cool at the same time. So that was accomplished. Would I read something else by this author? Yeah, I guess I would. I think she has another book called The Twisted Ones or something, and maybe I'll look into that. Okay, you guys, like and subscribe, and until next time, bye!